Today, we're diving into a topic that's relevant to anyone who cares about emotional growth and healthy relationships. Our guest, Addison Shock, is a life coach who specializes in helping young men navigate the challenges of emotional intelligence, taking responsibility, and building strong, healthy connections. His unique approach empowers individuals to take ownership of their lives, manage their anxiety, and develop resilience in the face of life's challenges. In this episode, Addison will share insights on how we can all better understand and support the young men in our lives, whether they're sons, brothers, friends, or colleagues. We'll explore practical strategies for embracing responsibility, expressing emotions in a healthy way, and developing deeper connections with the people around us. Even if you're not a parent, this conversation offers valuable perspectives on navigating relationships and personal growth that can benefit everyone. So get ready to learn how to support emotional development, guide meaningful connections, and help the young men in your life and yourself become the best version of you. Addison, welcome to the show.
Hi. Hi. Nice to see you.
Hello, good to see you again. This is going to be such a delightful conversation. I actually really just love having men on the show to give like um, a closer perspective on both sides of things, from
Mhm,
like women and men and your growing up and what it was like for you and
mhm,
a woman and what it's like for her and how to navigate the world today. And I think like it's so valuable for us to all kind of understand each other in that way.
mhm,
I mean, we are not made the same. We do operate differently. And yes, we have a lot
mhm,
in common, but we also have a lot of differences and differences in the way that the world reacts with us and we react with the world, right? So
mhm.
I'd love for you to just start by sharing your own experiences as a young man, without an adult role model having deeply influenced your work. Like, tell us about your journey and what led you to
Mhm,
become a life coach, especially for young men.
mhm. Sure. Um, yeah, I would say this. I had people in my life growing up, but I very much when it came to a level of like emotional, I had a lot of emotional capacity from a very early age.
Mhm.
And I would say maybe the easiest way to say is I had a lot of emotion from a very early age
Mm. Mhm.
and didn't really know what to do with it in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. And I think partially because I had a mom and three younger sisters, I like was very much surrounded by emotion. That's something that we've all spoken about a lot. And so learned really quickly how to like, okay, I can kind of pay attention to what's happening emotionally. How do I like navigate this, manage this, deal with this, sort out what's going on? Um, and so for a long time in my life, I kind of played that game and was able to kind of get by
Mhm.
in like answering to emotional situations, not with a lot of honesty, but with like meeting the emotion in the moment. Uh, and so I had a level of emotional intelligence, but there wasn't a lot of depth or like not integrity, but like not a lot of depth to it. I didn't know
Yeah.
how to process and operate uh, with those emotions. Um, and I also, my dad was in the picture and he's incredible and lovely. I would say that he is there's that like tropey kind of like boomer dad that like, you know, he expresses emotion, but it's usually on the extremes. It's like, okay, he's really, really angry or upset, or he's like really happy and joyful. And it's kind of swings between those two.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the nuance within the middle of that, like, wasn't there. His dad didn't teach him that. That was never something he had the space to learn and process. He's in his, in the more recent years, really dove into that work for himself. But I realized like basically through relationships that I was in, that I needed to grow up emotionally. And it took me a lot of pain to get to that point, but was something that I took many years to figure out and sort out for myself.
Yeah. So I want to know about what was it like for you to transition from, teenage years into like early
Hmm.
adulthood? What were some challenges and do these challenges show up in the people that you help now as well?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say the most difficult part was I knew how to emotionally manipulate situations because I was like kind of had a sense of emotions, but I didn't have a sense of my own emotions.
Mm.
just
You
like what was happening around me and how to like get what I needed out of a situation. And that was a big area where I needed to grow up, plain and
Okay.
simple. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
do you see that a lot in, like, your own clients as well? Like, they can know how to act in a certain situation based on
Hmm.
other people's emotions, but they're not fully aware of what's going on inside of them.
Hmm. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I would say I see, I mean, a lot of things with the clients I work with, but also a huge piece of this is that uh, a lot of men that I work with uh, have just completely shut down to their emotions and um, feel afraid to get anywhere near those emotions for a lot of different reasons. I had that experience with anger growing up where I saw like anger as a constant emotion, but it was one that was like filled with rage and not safe and not in control often. So then my goal was to never be angry. So
Mm,
when I was in my younger years, I was like, I'm never going to be angry. I don't express anger in any way. But what that did is like anger is a normal emotion. It has to come out at some point. So what that did is in an attempt to not be that expression of anger, I bottled everything up and then
mhm,
it would come out because it has to at some point,
mhm.
and I would be the exact thing that I was trying to avoid. And
Yeah.
so that's a consistent experience that I see among young men who don't know how to manage their own anger.
Yeah.
And so
So
they don't feel safe to express it in any way.
so you do talk about the importance of healthy anger expression. Can you explain what that
Hmm.
actually looks like and how it differs from more of a destructive form of anger that
Hmm.
men might experience?
Yeah. A lot of the men that I work with, and myself included, are terrified of their own anger.
Mm,
And so because they're afraid of it, they don't get anywhere near it or attempt to do anything with it. So then they never get comfortable with their own anger. And I would say that's one of the greatest skills that for anybody, but for men particularly, to be really comfortable with your own anger, because then that gives you the capacity to express it in ways where it's not harmful to yourself and the people around you love the most.
so give me an
And
example
so,
of what that looks
mhm,
like. Because
yeah,
'Cause I'm like, I have
uh,
boys, and I do
uh-huh,
notice, like, even my son who's 7, right? Like, I
hmm,
notice that he has a lot more emotions this year. Like, I don't know what
hmm,
it is, but, like, 7, for some reason, I'm like, I notice, and he has, like, those little angry outbursts, and I'm like,
hmm,
"Okay, well, can't hit your sister, but there is
yeah,
a punching bag in the garage,
yeah,
there's a pillow you can scream in, like, you
hmm,
can go run around the court." Like, how do you teach these men that how to
hmm,
express anger in a healthy way?
yeah. I would say one of the biggest ways is not to shame them or teach them that anger is inherently bad,
Okay.
because it's not. We all experience anger. Anger is a normal emotion. It sounds like you're doing that in a really beautiful way. It's like, okay, these are kind of the rules for your anger. You can't hit your sister.
Yeah.
Rule number one,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, there's other ways. Like if you need to be angry, go get that energy out. Go move it along. Go
Mhm.
hit a punching bag. Go run around the block. Like get it out and move it along.
Mm.
For for um, for older men, and the demographic I work with is like 18 to like 45. So
Mhm.
young men is a really relative term, and there's various points along the stages. But for a lot of men, one of the things I teach is like, can you actually very simply just communicate with your words when you are angry? And that makes a huge difference. And so something I practice in my partnership right now is if I'm angry about something, I ask if I can just share about that. And she holds space for me. And I'm like, I'm just pissed off because of this and this and this and this and this. And I just talk and vent and let it out because for so long, what I would do is I would be angry about something and I would just kind of stew internally. I
Mhm.
wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't tell anybody. I didn't want to like make a big deal out of it. But by not making it a big, not making any deal out of it, it made it a big deal because then I would get in the car to go somewhere and the car wouldn't start and I would lose my mind.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
like so mad. And maybe maybe for women listening, you've experienced this where it's like something very little that doesn't seem that significant creates a big outburst of a lot of anger. And you're like, where did that come from?
Mhm.
And where it
Mhm.
came from is all these small things that built and built and built and built and built that were never expressed.
Mhm.
And so the emotions got pent up.
So as the person on the other side, let's say, just
Hmm.
playing like roles here, if your husband or your son or your friend is having one of those outbursts, what is the
Mhm.
best role to take on to help them with that, and recognizing that there's something else they could do different? Or is this something that, like, if I say something, it'll be worse and that they need to come to terms on their own? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say one of the worst things to do would be to take on a mothering form and tone, particularly in a partnership, right? Take on
Mhm.
a mothering tone and form,
Okay.
um, because it tends to it doubles down on like your anger is
Mhm.
bad,
Yeah.
and it creates a shame-filled experience around anger.
Okay. So give
I'll
me an
give you
example of what is good. And
yeah. Um, so this is like at the point where they've something has set a man off, and he's like he's built up anger for a long time, and it's all coming out in the moment,
mhm.
right? And there's a lot here because there's also safety. It's like uh there's one thing to be like filled with rage and having an experience, and it's still like safe. You know that nothing is going to happen physically, right? This like
Mhm.
has to be involved in this conversation. One of the things that my partner does that's really incredible is she just kind of lets me throw my fit, and
Mhm.
she just lets me do it, right? And we're going to talk about it later, as we should, because the way I'm responding is not constructive or helpful or appropriate or mature or like fill in the blanks. She lets me throw my fit, and then she invites me that like I'm allowed to express anger when I need to and not allow it to bottle up. And that gives me this reminder of like, oh, wait a second. I just got set off by something that was insignificant, but that I can trace that back to like 15 things over the last 4 days that I never said a word about, that I just continued to like suppress and push down. And so in the moment, um, not taking a mothering tone and not attempting to like uh, scold him, I would say, because that continues to affirm for the next time, like your anger is bad, and you're not allowed to express your emotions. And I would say that most men feel like they are not allowed to express their emotions.
Mm.
That's a pretty consistent experience. I would say fits of rage are like one of the only ways that they, mainly because it has to come out at some point, but the only place where it feels like that's like a manly thing to do. And I would
Mm.
say it's far from a manly thing to do. I think it's a really immature and unhelpful thing to do.
Yeah, okay, so let's dive in more to, like, this mothering, like,
Mhm.
and I wanna talk, from 2 different angles. I wanna talk about, like, as a mother, how
Mhm.
can we approach this so that, the next woman in their life, right, like their spouse,
Mm,
doesn't have
mhm.
to mother them, that we can do the proper mothering in a transition period of being a child to being an adult, right? And
Sure.
I'm very much in this too. You know, I have a son, he's gonna be 18 in the end of this month. And um, like I definitely want to give him space for that, right? With
Mhm,
and I but my instinct is to mother it, right? Like,
mhm,
and to teach otherwise, like what we can do otherwise, right? But what does that look like? Or what are the don'ts, should I
mhm,
say, with mothering our young adult males?
mhm,
And what are the do's? Like,
mm,
for boys to become men and process emotions in a healthy
mhm.
way.
Sure. Yeah, and I wanna, like, offer a caveat to be like, I'm not a mother and will never be a mother, and in no way can,
Well, but you're offering the
no,
perspective
yeah,
of the son, right? Which
sure,
I think is also
sure.
valuable. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do wanna, like I want to offer such gratitude, and such, like gratitude feels like even such too cheap of a word for, like, the mothers out there in the world. I'm a product of an incredible mother who, is wonderful
Yeah.
and lovely, and she, uh in all of course, like all mothers, in all of the complexity of her, she's wonderful.
Mhm.
Um, I would say when it comes to kind of like this young adult age, and I think particularly like what you're working with, 18, 18 to, 22, 24, something like that. Um, I think one of the biggest things is, and we spoke to it, but allowing them the space to process and feel emotions, and not rescuing them every time they feel emotions.
Mm,
And I would say that mothers have a love that is like unmatched on the surface of the planet. And
mhm,
it like, to like, my mom loves me so much that at times, because of that love, she enabled me to continue to act in like childish and immature ways.
mhm. I could see that. Like, not for you,
And
but for a
so,
lot of people.
sure. And
Mhm,
so, well, I mean, but that carried over where there were things that she did for me out of love that didn't allow me to take the responsibility I needed to take in my own life.
mhm,
And that had a big impact because there were a lot of ways that I didn't grow up. And there are a lot of things, and this is in like, you could see this in small actions. Um, like taxes. My mom paid my taxes into my 20s.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
like I was happy as could be when it was happening because nobody likes to pay their taxes and deal with that. But it was a really it was tricky because then that carried over into a relationship
Mm,
where what happened is I went from my mom taking care of me to then my partner taking care of me,
mm.
which, ladies, you know, you do not want a partner that you were mothering. It's
Yeah,
the last thing you want. It's the most unattractive, least sexy thing on the planet to have like a feel like your partner is a boy that you're having to take care of.
yeah, for
And so for
sure.
moms, allowing them to uh, struggle, allowing them to do the things that they need to do to be a responsible young adult and not enabling them and babying them and taking care of everything for them. They are not going to like this right
There
now in the moment, but they will be very grateful years down the road, and their partners will be very grateful
Mhm.
because um, they grew up. They had to make decisions and take actions that were ultimately good for them.
Yeah.
And so I would say like a big do is like, don't rescue and baby your young adult son the way that you did whenever he was 2, 3, 5, 7. Like,
Mhm,
you have to allow him some autonomy and allow him to experience some level of struggle.
mhm. Yeah,
Obviously, within a range, like when it's safe, right?
yeah. When it's safe, yeah, a healthy struggle.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I one of the things I've kept in my mind as my son, goes off and kind of does those healthy struggle types of things. Like he went to the Philippines this summer on his senior trip. Last night he just got back from San Diego. He went with his friends and I don't like give him money. He has to figure out like how he's going
Hmm.
to pay for this stuff and where he's going to sleep. And, I didn't go book his hotel or,
Hmm.
any of that stuff. And, it's hard to let them go because there's this point where you feel like, oh, is he safe? Does he have a roof over his head? Is he sleeping in a
Hmm.
car? Is he sleeping in a hotel? Is it safe at that hotel? Like, and there's all these things that go through my mind. But at the end of the day, what comes to me is let go to let them grow, like
Hmm.
at
That's
that
beautiful.
age, right? Like, and
Hmm.
it's something that is hard. It's really hard. I will say that as a mother, right? Because we
Hmm.
want to protect. We are that mama bear for our kids. We want them to be healthy and we want them to be successful though too. And part of
Yeah.
them figuring that out on their own is letting them go. Like let the leash go a little bit
Hmm.
here. Um, and so yeah, I think it has been very important to let them go, and
Hmm.
figure that out themselves and have those
Hmm.
struggles, like figure it out, without mom.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
want I want to touch on anxiety a lot because I think there is even like from when I went to high school, to now these boys like that are graduating high school, there's a level of like anxiety that I feel from them a little bit
Hmm.
more than I ever felt from like back in my day. Like I don't know, it felt like a little bit more free when I was in school. I didn't feel like there was so much worry, and I know a lot of that also has to do with like the social media era and like just the technology era that they live in. But I want to know from your perspective, because I know anxiety is something I think that you've struggled with in the
Hmm.
past as well, and you've helped many of your clients
Hmm.
through. Like, how do you help young men reframe their anxiety and develop healthy coping mechanisms with anxiety?
Hmm. Yes. the way that I do this on like an individual basis is always really different. And, um, but I would say that like to have this experience of like kind of like very paralyzing anxiety is really normal for, I would say almost all of the 18 to like 25-year-olds that I work with.
Mm,
It's a consistent experience. And there's a bunch of different reasons for this. Like truly, I feel like everyone that I work with, there's some slight slant that's different as to why they experience this. But ultimately, there is a big cultural piece to this. When you look at what young men are facing, and there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me who have written extensively about this
mhm,
and make sense of a lot of what has kind of been localized right now for this generation,
mhm,
um, of like 18 to 24-year-old men around like everything from like education systems to social media, of course,
mhm,
to political realities, to like you name it across the board. The way that I work with them and the way that I attempt to support them is to get really narrow on naming the thing that is causing them this deep seated anxiety, and then helping them to, as you said, like simply reframe that in ways that are healthy for them, because so much of anxiety is this like future driven fear that uh, likely will never come true, but it takes all of our energy and attention.
mhm,
And there's this feeling of like helplessness and powerlessness within the anxiety that they feel. And so what I attempt to do with the young men that I work with is to help them understand and find, okay, this is the problem that you're experiencing. This is like the future fear that you're having. Well, is there anything we can do about that? If there is, what is it? How can we instill some healthy patterns and habits
mhm,
and then move forward? I'll give you an example. I have an 18-year-old that have been working with, and about to graduate high school, a lot of anxiety about the future.
mhm,
Like, what's next for me? What are the next steps? And it's like, okay, well, like, what are you doing about it? And he's like, well, nothing. And it's like, okay, so it's this thing that you have terrible anxiety about, but we're not putting any energy and effort into actually making a step towards anything. And so what we do is we attempt to make a step. And at that age, it's very much like not what do you want to do with your life, but a lot of it is figuring out like what do you not want to do?
mm, yeah,
Let's like
mhm.
let's tick some of the
What do you
boxes of
don't
like
want life
things
to
that
look like? Yeah.
what do you not want to do? And
Mhm,
then let's start to put the pieces together, and let's at least give you a runway so you can start to feel like you're making some progress.
mhm,
And so with this young man, we set about an 8-month runway of like, okay, these are some small steps you're going to take over the next 8 months, and then we're going to reassess in 8 months. And so you have permission now to just be in the experience of your senior year of high school and to take these small steps. And we're
mhm,
going to allow the 5 years beyond that that you're so anxious about, we're going to allow those to just be right now. And
mhm,
when you start to feel anxious about that, you can remember you're making steps towards that, but those steps are these small things. And then in 8 months, we're going to reassess and move forward again. Because like anxiety is just a complete lack of being present too. And that contributes so much with it's easy to like blame everything on social media, but it's like to be completely connected in one moment to the entirety of the world through Instagram
mhm.
is like it pulls you out of the present pretty intensely.
Right.
And so how can we bring them into the present of like, this is where I'm at, this is what's going on. And then I have some steps in place. And I don't have to think about 5 years from now, right now.
Mhm,
I don't have to. I can enjoy senior year. I can be where I'm at. I can like exist right here and be okay. And
mm,
so, like I said, it's different for everyone, but it's an attempt to like lay out a plan, help them be present. And then if there's some action we can take towards the thing that's making them so anxious, we'll do it. And if not, a lot of times I have to help them understand like the fear that they're experiencing is there for a reason, but it doesn't have to be there.
yeah. Yeah, I love that because I think that there is, many in this age group that are either avoiding it altogether and they call them
Hmm.
like opting out altogether, right?
Yep. Yep.
Or they are, going to the addictions because they don't
Hmm.
know any other way to manage their emotions that they're feeling, so they
Hmm.
numb them. or they bury the emotion in achievements, right? And I feel
Mhm.
like you see like the just completely avoid opt out or the addictions or the like line drive for the achievements. I'm going to avoid the emotions that way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that I see
Mhm.
in both men and women, right? This isn't just
Mhm.
a man thing. I did it too,
Sure.
right? I avoided all emotions, but I was like, oh, I'm going to prove to the world, I
Yep.
matter, and we'll worry about the emotions later because we got work to do.
Mhm.
And then it turned out, it was a long path to get to where I am today. But um for those people that are maybe listening and thinking like, hey, my son or my friend or me, myself, are doing those things. I am avoiding or I am
Mhm.
numbing the pain or numbing the emotion with this addiction, or I am, just trying to work so hard because I'm avoiding being present and having to sit in
Mhm.
with my emotions. What would you say to any of those?
Hmm. It's so funny because this is the thing that I often take like 6 months to a year to like
I know, it's a hard question,
lock
right?
in.
And
No, no, it's great. It's good. It's really good. Um,
I
but
think
it is. Go ahead. What were you gonna
I
say?
just think it's like a needed conversation more often, right? And it's not
Absolutely.
saying that there's one
Absolutely.
answer to it at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
But like it has to be a conversation because
Mhm.
I mean, we've all been there, like, right? But like, how can we help this generation not have to walk through that? And how can we
Yeah,
change because, ultimately it just leads down a path of destruction if we never
for sure.
fix it. And it's
Mhm.
sad, and
Mhm.
so what would you say? Like, what would you say to
This
those
is
people?
this is so simple, and it is. I do this with every single one of my clients.
Mhm,
I get them to, in moments where they are feeling that exactly what you're speaking to, they're opting out, they're like completely avoidant, or
mhm.
they're just like spinning themselves up and super anxious. I have a background in like somatics, and because I'm a yoga teacher as well, and so
Oh,
but what
cool.
I get them to do is I get them to stop and I get them to take 10 deep breaths.
Mm.
And that is the simplest thing on the planet. And every time I tell those clients to do it, they're like, that's the like all this that I'm feeling and experiencing, and that's the thing you're gonna offer me as like a tool. And I'm like, that's exactly the thing I'm gonna offer you as a tool. Because what it does is it resets the nervous system.
Mhm, mhm.
And so much of what's happening in those moments is that we've like you've become this big balloon where your head is racing with thoughts and running and running, and it either shuts you down or it just continues to ramp you up. And so this is driving your whole body and nervous system and makes you reach for all the numbing
Mhm.
opportunities. It makes you like check out all the things. But to be able to reverse that cycle and allow your body to inform your brain and to take 10 deep breaths, like truly deep belly breaths. And even if that just brings you back for like another 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes that you got to like exist and be in your body right where you were. And it's funny, it particularly, what I've noticed with my younger clients, like 18 to 24, 25, is that they love this tool because it's tangible.
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
not
It's
giving
always
them
with
like
you.
I want you to like take this thought process and do this next time it happens. It's like, no, just take 10 breaths. You don't have to do much. You've been breathing your whole life. So like you're good at it. Take 10 breaths. And they do it. And it is so supportive for them because it brings them like literally back to earth is what
Yeah,
it feels like.
yeah,
And
I
it
love that.
gives their nervous system a reset.
Yeah, I'm all
And
about the deep
yeah.
breaths too, and I think it's just like and, for those listening, you've heard us talk about this before on Life Without Secrets, like, it's because it's so important, and I feel like we're gonna talk
Mhm.
about this until we drill it into your head because it is something that we carry with us, and it is so powerful, and, like, it's one of those things where it's like, don't knock it till you try it, like, because, like, you might be even listening and going, "Oh my gosh, all I have to do is take deep breaths," like, "Come on, people." Like, but this is the truth, like,
I
this is science, people. This is
uh-huh.
science, this is psychology, this is the way we are
Mhm.
built.
Mhm. I fought it forever. I would be
Yeah.
like, that is like such I had so much judgment towards that practice. at least offering it as something to give to clients. But I was like, but wait, what do I do like
Yeah.
every day? And it's
Mhm.
like, oh, I stop and take 10 deep breaths and it works. So
Mhm.
I have to get over that judgment. And there's always this feeling in like in the space that I'm in with like, I want to like give the best things I can to support them. But oftentimes what we mean is like, I want it to seem cool and I want it to seem revolutionary and like really novel. And it's like, no, this is so simple and it works. So I'm
Mhm.
just going to stick with that. And
Mhm.
that's something I get all of my guy clients to do. And again, that demographic, that age group really likes it. They cling to it more than any other age group I work with
Ooh, that's
because I
good to
think
know.
it's really tangible.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that.
yeah.
So you do emphasize, and we were just talking about the importance of taking responsibility, right? Like, I want to go
Hmm.
back to that a little bit. So, how
Hmm.
do you guide young men in owning their choices and actions, especially
Hmm.
when they do feel stuck or when they do
Hmm.
feel overwhelmed or anxious about these life challenges that they're going through?
Hmm.
How do we
Hmm.
how do we guide them to own their choices and actions? I do see,
Hmm.
like, in having one myself, there's blame, or there's, avoiding, or all these different things that happen. Like, how do you guide them
Hmm.
in owning, taking responsibility?
Hmm. I'll give you an example. I had a 24-year-old client who we were navigating a relationship with his mom and his sister. And, um, but he told me a couple of times in a row, he's like, I have this, like, he just mentioned it in passing, like, I have this sensor going off in my car.
Mm,
And he's like, I need to get that done this week. And I would kind of check in just because it's like something we chatted about. I was like, well, did you get that done? Like, no. And then I finally dove into it a little more. And what I realized, and he admitted this, was he's like, actually, what I'm doing is I'm waiting for my mom or my sister to just do it for me.
mhm.
He's like, I just keep kind of kicking that can down the road and waiting for one of the women in my life to like take care of me.
Mm,
And so what I was able to do was say, like, I don't care what you do this week, but you better fix that sensor. Like, and I can say that because I'm like, it's the relationship we have. But I was like, do not come on this call next week and not fix that sensor.
mhm. Yeah.
He fixed it. He fixed it. And we were able to really process that experience for him. And he realized one thing, it was really simple and it didn't take much effort. And then two is that he felt accomplished. And
Mm,
he was like, I had something to do that needed to be done and I just
mm,
did it. And then that was the end of it.
mm.
And those are the opportunities that young men need to like get the ball rolling and realize that those little things that like are being an adult and growing up, there's a level of like confidence that builds in taking care of those things. Yes, it's like really nice when someone does it for you, but it doesn't support you in the long run and it doesn't build a sense of like self-respect and self-worth. And so that simple act is so much more about like, do you have respect for yourself? And will you take care of the things that you need to take care of instead of waiting around passively in your life for other people to handle it for you?
Mhm.
And so that's something I always work with my guys. It's like, what are things right now that you know you need to do that you're not doing that are simple
Yeah.
and that maybe you are waiting for oftentimes the women in your life to take care of for you? And this
Mm,
comes back to like the mothering and kind of
yeah.
like enabling experience. It's like I had my fair share of things where I would wait and delay things, and then my mom would take care of it, or a partner would take care of it for me. And it never really felt great, but it was like, that's done. Who cares? And it's whenever I started being like, no, I'm going to take care of this. This is my responsibility. And then I realized how good that actually felt, that it kind of snowballed into this experience of like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't want to do, but it feels good to accomplish it and to
Yeah.
get it done and to make sure it's handled. And
Yeah.
so it starts, I think, with helping these men realize like uh, our egos are good at tricking us into thinking that we're not just waiting for someone in our life to take care of it. And that was the experience with that client where he was finally able to admit, like, I think I'm just waiting for someone else to do it. And it's like, that's an incredible thing for you to realize. And now let's shift that. because it's not good for you.
Mhm.
And it's not good for your relationships.
Yeah.
It's terrible for your relationships.
Yeah. I think relationships too are like also like it's a source of joy, right? And it's also a source of stress for anyone.
Hmm.
And so, like, how would or what advice do you give them for managing healthy relationships, whether that's friends,
Hmm.
family, or romantic partners when it comes to this type of situation?
Yeah. What advice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because you've had your own thing that you've had to learn, right? And
Hmm.
um in your own relationships, what and not
Hmm.
relationships not working out, like, what were things that you learned that maybe someone listening could be like, "Yeah, that's probably something I should work on."
I would say a through line to this, what we just spoke about with like taking
Mhm.
responsibility. I spent a lot of my life trying to do what I thought other people wanted me to do.
Mm.
And so I would be like attempting to like act or be in a way where, particularly where I made like where I felt like I was doing what the women in my life thought I should be doing.
Mhm.
And so it made me like pretty weak and pretty like kind of all over the place. But so what I started doing, this connects to like getting the car sensor fixed. When I started making decisions for myself that were my decisions, the biggest shift that I found is that my defensiveness went away.
Oh, so
Because
interesting.
when I'm making the decision and it's my decision, then I am fully okay to accept the consequences of that because it's my decision. But I was so defensive for so long because I felt like I was making decisions based on what I thought other people wanted me to do. And so then when it would work out where it would hurt somebody or have an impact, I was like, but this isn't even what I would want to do. Like I was trying to be a good guy and it didn't work. And so when I started making decisions that were my decisions, I can hold the consequences of that. It was my decision. And so I can hold accountability for it and I can accept, and I don't have to be defensive about it. And that was just like a clear decision for me to start taking ownership for my actions. Because then what happens is whenever I do impact my partner, I can show up for her in the hurt that I caused, and I don't have to make it about myself. And that's a huge common thing that men do, where like they hurt somebody, and you're so worried about um, hurting someone and being the like labeled the bad guy that you try and shift and fight to be like, well, that wasn't what I was trying to do, but my intention was this, and it's like that doesn't matter. There was an impact, and so can you just hear the impact and make space for that person to be able to express what they need to, and then move along. But me making decisions that were my own was a huge way that I shifted the defensiveness that I experienced in relationship.
And talk about, like, what kinda decisions those were because,
Hmm.
there is a point where, especially when you have a family, right, there is a lot of decisions that impact everybody in the family, and
Hmm.
that I think require, like, a family meeting or, like,
Hmm.
other people to be involved in that decision. So what kinda decisions are you talking about that really made an impact for you to be like, "Yeah, I'm thinking, like, I can make a decision for myself, and that's healthy."
Hmm. Sure. The funny, this is always funny to me because the decisions are often so insignificant and small that are the ones that create the biggest conversations, fights, whatever you want to say, right? And so it's like I was just thinking of one because I was doing some laundry today, and it's like the decision to wash the colors and the whites all together, and like making that decision and doing it, and then my partner being like, I don't want my whites washed with the colors. And instead of being like, well, I was trying to help you and I was going to do this for you because I thought it was sweet. And like, I've been doing laundry all day. And then it's like, no, wait a second. There's nothing inherently bad about me for like mixing the two and washing them. That's okay. Right. And so I don't have to be defensive here and push back against and fight to be seen in some certain light. It's like, I I washed both of them together, and I'm really sorry about that. And next time I'll separate them. That's like,
Instead of
I can
getting
do that
defensive.
instead of fighting about it and like trying to be like, but I was doing this for you and I was trying to be thoughtful and, um, because those are I mean, anybody listening to this knows like you've had a fight within the past 24 hours, probably about the silliest, most insignificant thing ever. At least that's the thing that caused the fight.
Mhm.
But there's so much layered within that, obviously. And how can we not allow, how can we emotionally get a hold of ourselves to be able to manage those little situations that often cause this huge friction in a way that's like, I'm not going to take this personally. I don't need to defend myself. I
Yeah.
just, I just put the whites and the colors in the laundry in the same load. And
And you
that's,
can do that
and
with your own
I
laundry.
sure. And I won't do that again with your stuff.
Yeah.
And then what's beautiful is for the men out there, when you respond that way, I guarantee you that you're going to get a thank you for attempting to wash the clothes
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
the conversation.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's what happened. And my partner's like, thanks for hearing it. Like, and thanks for trying to think, thanks for thinking of me. Like, thanks for
Mhm.
washing them either way.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, of course. And next time I'll separate them. So
Yeah.
it's easy.
I love that. I love that example too because it's something like everybody can relate to because
Mhm.
it's something so small that we all like talk about, I think, at home. And so it's such a good example too. And yeah, I think like that also goes back to okay, hold on, Blake. It's Labor Day, people. The kids are home. It goes back to just like being able to have some accountability for our own actions, our own
Mhm.
emotions, like what's going on inside of us and what's really like the truth behind why we're defensive, like
Sure.
I think that is just a great example. Um,
Mhm.
for anybody like, listening and wanting to give support to let's say it's a mom's listening and
Mhm.
they have a boy and they want to support their son transitioning into adulthood.
Mhm.
What would you what is something a common challenge that you could give them advice towards?
Mhm. Hmm. I'll say this, and I'll say this is what I found, and this is in like a lot of because I also meet with mothers to like help them have a glimpse into like what's happening. But I would say that um, there is a level of trusting your son, even when you feel like maybe he has given you no sign of being trustworthy. Now, this is like there's a risk level here you have to assess, of course. But young men feeling trusted and feeling the responsibility of that trust is a good thing for them to feel. It's very empowering. And it's a way that they can kind of break out of this like childhood mold in some way. And so again, this is like really delicate because yeah, there's certain stuff where it's like you don't maybe trust them. Like here's the car keys, see in 10 days, right? Like maybe that's not the level of trust, but to empower them to kind of step into their own responsibility and give them the autonomy to do that in ways where it's safe and good. And then because they are going to screw up, but that's also a part of that's a part of adolescence. Like that's how we learn. And so, how can then, when they do make those decisions that aren't the best decisions at times, how then can it be debriefed, talked about, and done in a way that's still respectful and open instead of like completely shaming and scolding?
Yeah.
Because that creates more of like a shutting down experience.
Yeah. I can give an
And
example to that a little bit, I think.
mhm,
So, my son, he was struggled in school, but I was like, I don't expect you to get straight A's, but there has
mhm,
to be some effort here so we can pass the class. And so he had to go to summer school 1 year and I ended up having to drive him. It was like 30 minutes there and back. And so
mhm,
I did it and I said, "You know what? Next summer, you know what this is like. You know what you have to do now. And next
mhm,
summer, I won't be driving you. And it's going to be all on you to figure out like how you're going to get there, because if you want to keep going to summer school, that's not a me problem. That's something
Mhm.
that you're creating. And so you need to be responsible for the lack of action you took for the year, not me. Like,
Mhm.
this can't
Mhm.
be impacting my life. It wasn't my decision, it's yours. And so the
Mhm.
next summer came along and he ended up having to do summer school, and he was like, I gotta go. And I'm like, okay, I guess you're gonna have to figure it out. And he had to figure out a ride every day to get it done.
Mhm.
And now I was like, I know, I have faith in you. You'll figure it out,
Mhm. Mhm.
like, and it
Sure.
gave him the ability to f- know he could figure something out on his own, like, because
Mhm.
he had to. And like, guess what? We didn't have to do summer school this year. He
Yep.
graduated.
Yep. Yep.
And so, letting them fail early, but also giving them like, I know you can do it. You know?
Mhm.
It's not like,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, you just can't do anything," but, like,
Yep.
I know you can do this. So, like, you'll
And
figure it out.
that's a beautiful example, and he's really lucky to have you uh, giving him that challenge, and then like sticking with it, because that's something that will be invaluable for him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's also this level of because it can be easily where that would be framed as punishment. It's like
Mhm. Mhm.
you it was your fault, so you figured out on your own. But I can just tell, even in the way you spoke about it, it's like, hey, this isn't punishment. This is just like, this has to be your responsibility.
Mhm. Mhm.
And to grow up and to take responsibility and to be an adult is not a punishment.
Mhm.
It's a necessary thing, and it's actually intended to be an empowering thing.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
so often we punish adolescent young men with adult responsibility. And so then in their mind, they're always equating adult responsibilities as punishment. When it's
Mm.
like, no, this isn't a punishment. This is like what it is to be an adult. And
Mhm.
so go forth, like, make it happen. Like, this is good for you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's all about perspective and wording, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes.
Hmm.
Well, if you could
Yeah.
just share one last key message with young
Hmm.
men listening today, what would it be?
Hmm. I would say this: there are things right now that you are avoiding and passing off. And I promise you, if you would just commit to accomplishing those things, you are going to feel a million times better. And it is a way to get the ball rolling. Like, there are things right now that you need to do that you're avoiding and you're pushing off. And it's not respecting yourself, and it's actually really impacting you more than anyone. But the level of confidence and level of accomplishment that you'll feel if you just take care of it is amazing. And
Yeah.
what you're doing is holding yourself in this prison of where you're kind of like being a passenger in your own life. And so go make it happen. Like, go accomplish it and see how you feel. And I promise you, it's not as hard as you think it is. And you're going to feel incredible once you've accomplished it.
Ooh, I think that was such a good message for anybody listening. That was so good.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
true. Even in my own life, what is it that I'm avoiding? I think
Hmm.
that's a great question. Where
Hmm.
can listeners find out more about you and your work and connect with you?
My website, Addison Shock Coaching, .com. You can check that out, or on Instagram, Addison Shock Coaching. Yeah, my passion is to support men. Like I said, young
Mhm.
men, ages like 18 to 40, 45. I work with kind of all ages, but yeah, that's what I love. I love seeing men succeed and grow up. No matter, we're all growing up, right? So no matter what age
Yeah,
level we are, we're
absolutely.
growing up,
Yeah,
and that's what I love. And so I love supporting men in that process.
love
So
it.
yeah.
Well, thanks
Mhm.
for coming on here today and sharing
Yeah.
your
Thank
heart
you.
and your insights with
Hmm.
us on emotional
Hmm.
intelligence and, taking responsibility and being able
Hmm.
to build those healthy relationships that we all want. So, thanks for coming
Hmm.
on.
Thank you. Yeah. Have a happy rest of the day with the kiddos.
I know, right? He's like
Yeah.
he's over here writing me notes. I'm bored. I'm super bored. I'm like, okay. Well, for anybody tuning in, I hope this conversation has inspired you to think about the ways you can embrace emotional growth and help those around you do the same. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to check out Addison's work and continue exploring how to navigate life's challenges with greater confidence and clarity. Thanks for listening. And as always, stay tuned for more episodes of Life Without Secrets. Until next time, take care and keep growing. Hey there, it's Jillian from Life Without Secrets. Ever feel like you and your partner aren't quite on the same page? Well, you're not alone, and that's exactly why I created our latest issue of Truthful magazine. It's packed with insights and stories about bridging that gap and finding a deeper connection. We're diving into real conversations about needs, feelings, and how honest dialogue can rekindle that closeness that you've been missing. Why not explore this together? Go grab your free copy right now at lifewithoutsecrets.com and turn those pages into shared moments. Can't wait for you to dive in and share your thoughts with me.